Hey gang, John Bacarella here with your Lake St. Clair Fishing Report, brought to you by Sportsmen's Direct. It is Wednesday, September 8th. Doing the fishing report a little bit early this week just because that's the way the schedule is working out with the kids back in school and everything. So wanted to get it out there. I know you guys rely on this to plan your weekends and so forth out there. We have turned the corner now officially, finally, with the water temps out there since the last report. And we are down 5 degrees from the last report. So we are sitting at about 73 degrees. And that is, if you remember, it's always a Belle Isle water temp that I use, which means that your shorelines and your shallows, especially in the morning when with these cool nights that we got in the upper 50s and lower 60s, those shallows are going to cool off even more during the evenings. And what that means is you'll get kind of a taste, especially at the early morning bite in those shallows, of fish that are moving in to feed. With the water temps going probably from the lower 80s that we had a couple of weeks ago in the shallows to now maybe, you know, pushing around the 70-degree mark or even below in the upper 60s early in the morning, you're definitely going to start seeing more activity early in the mornings in there. So for you guys chasing smallies, even you muskie hunters, you're not going to be, you should be trying out some of those shallower waters, especially in the morning time hours. And as we go later into the year, it's that pattern is just going to keep progressing, and you're going to get more and more shallow bite going on. You're losing a lot of weeds out there. For you guys that are out there casting and trolling, you're starting to notice that you've got a lot of weeds floating on the surface. And so you really got to play the winds as to where you're going to fish, because especially if you're, well, casting or trolling, either way, you don't want to be getting into those giant weed mats, although they are structure sometimes for fish, but they can really bunk up the lines and just make your day a mess out there, especially if you're running boards for walleyes and you're dodging all those giant weed mats. So right now we got kind of an offshore wind, so it's taking a lot of those weeds out. But this time of the year, we will get wind directions going back and forth and every which way as these fronts move through. So it really, before you go out, try to pay attention to the way the wind is blowing within the last 24 hours. And that can save you a lot of headaches out there because you can play that wind and count on it blowing those weeds out. Now, why is there so many weeds? Well, the weeds are starting to die off. You got hours of daylight declining, and so just like your gardens, you guys are watching your gardens decline. The leaves are starting to change on the trees this time of the year. Those with the less daylight and the angle of the sun changing, those weeds out there start to die off, and some of them they get weak and they break off and they come to the surface. And then the wind pushes them around out there on the lake. Now, the other thing that happens when these weeds start dying off out there is there's less place for these bait fish and other fish. And when I mean bait fish, I mean even perch and other panfish. There's less place for them to hide. So when they do that, what happens? They have to school up. These fish have to school up for survival. It's part of nature, right? So when they get in the big crowd, when Mr. Muskie or walleye or smallmouth comes along, they're hiding in the crowd. So instead of hiding in the weed bed, they hide in the crowd. So once the weeds go away, the fish tend to school up a lot more. So that's why you're going to start to see the perch out there, instead of being pods of fish out on some of these weed beds, you're going to start to see these fish schooling up more and more as we head towards winter. And yes, I am talking about winter because the temperature is declining, and eventually, hopefully, southeast Michigan, hopefully we're going to get ice. And they seem to be calling for a very cold winter, according to the Farmer's Almanac. I don't know if I believe any of that stuff anymore. It seems like it's potluck, and it always has been here in southeast Michigan. So, but we're keeping our fingers crossed for a cold winter. Now, there is quite a bit going on this weekend. I know in St. Clair Shores, you got Major League Fishing, and that's going to be like a 6-day event going out of Blossom Heath. So sorry for you guys that are launching like out of Miller's and stuff. It's going to be kind of hectic down there. Up here on the north end by Harley and Crocker, and it doesn't seem like there's a whole lot going on tournament-wise up here. So if you're trying to get away from the crowd, move on up to the north end of the lake and you should be good. That event is about 80 anglers. It is the Elites Bass Fishing, and it's pretty cool. I think it's the first time we've had an event out here on the lake like this where they can catch multiple fish over 2 pounds, and it's all catch and release. As long as those fish are 2 pounds, they count towards that day's bag limit. And it is kind of a, if you go online, go to Major League Fishing, you can read all about you know, how that event runs, but it's pretty unique, and I'm kind of curious to see how big of bags are going to come in. I mean, they could potentially get a 100-pound bag a day out here with the way that event is run. So it's going to be pretty neat to watch what happens with that. Also coming up, I'll be heading up to Imlay City for one day this weekend for that Woods and Water Fair. That's always an awesome event. Not a ton of fishing tackle up there, but some really cool hunting stuff, and there's a lot of stuff up there by small owner-operator businesses, a lot of made-in-USA type of products. So I encourage everybody, if you get a chance, head up there to Imlay City, up to that Woods and Water Outdoor Fair. It's always a great time. Perch fishing still going on out here on Lake St. Clair, mostly up on that north end. I was talking with a buddy of mine that's back in town right now. He's chartering, Mike Martin Outdoors chartered. He's one of the few guys out here that runs like a multi-species type of charter service where, you know, he's kind of an opportunistic guy. I mean, you can charter with him and go out and catch perch and walleye and smallmouth and a little bit of everything. So if you're really trying to learn like how to, especially if you're new, a lot of guys are new to fishing period with COVID and everything. A lot of people really just got back into it. If you want to go out and learn like different multi-species tactics, he'd be a good guy to go out with out here on St. Clair. That's for any of you guys. I should probably mention that for all of you newcomers to the world of sport fishing. We've got tons of charter captains here on Lake St. Clair, and it never hurts to just pay to go out with a couple of these pros and learn a lot of their tricks that they have, and learn how they run different types of baits and things. You know, you're not gonna learn all their spots out there by any stretch, but you know, you're going to at least pick up some of the basics. So, you know, it's money well invested. And even the equipment side of it, you can talk to them most of the time. They'll tell you what equipment works best for them as far as brands and models and all that kind of stuff. So book a charter with one of these guys. And if you need info, swing by the store and we can hook you up with some of these different charter captains out here, whether it's muskies, smallmouths, walleyes, you have it, or even some perch charters like what Mike's been running out here lately on the lake. So that perch fishing up on that north end's been going pretty good, all around Strawberry, in and around Harson's Island we're hearing, in the cuts up there by the Snye. We heard they were doing good out by the bee marker till that water cleaned up out there, but with some of this wind that we got going again, if that water gets more off-colored, then those fish are going to probably show up out there in those weed beds. Although, remember what I was saying, these fish are going to start coming in too. So don't be afraid to hit some of these shallower weed beds that are still holding up. Although the weeds are going to start diminishing in those areas too, as the wind and the waves hit and start working these, you know, tearing up a lot of these weeds. Not hearing a ton on the walleyes, although I do know guys are still taking limits out there, and some of those limits are even coming from some of the guys perch fishing. There's still fish out on that channel bank out there, including smallies and walleyes out there, and of course the muskie guys are going over to Canada and they're doing a number on them over there. But as we get later and later in the fall, start watching that spillway mouth, especially when this lake really cools off, when it gets into the 50s, when it drops below 60 degrees out there, that mouth of that spillway is going to take off. We've got a ways to go for sure, but you're going to start to definitely see more muskie activity on this side of the lake, especially as a lot more of these boats come out. And as the boats come out, that also means it's going to be time for you guys to go and fish these marinas for all the panfish that have been in there getting fed popcorn and potato chips by all the little kiddos off the back of the boats all summer long. So you're going to be able to go after all those big gills and crappies in these canals here pretty quick. And that, again, we call that dock fishing season, and that's going to happen usually right around gun season, right in November, when all the boats are coming out of the marinas. Trying to think if I got anything else for you guys here this week. It's been kind of a crazy week. Man, I can't think of much else going on out there right now. I know there's something I'm forgetting to tell you guys, but I guess I'll have to put it in writing if I remember it after the fact. But take advantage. We got some cooler weather. It means less bugs. You're going to have more wind. Watch those wind directions like I was talking about with the weeds out there. And I know what I was going to mention to you guys. I was going to mention, start paying attention to your weed lines out here, especially if you got clear water conditions. With the turbulent winds and everything we're going to be getting going into the fall, sometimes we start to lose that water clarity that always drives us nuts during the summertime. But when you do get a clear day, take just take some time and let somebody else drive the boat, get up on the bow of that boat and start really looking at where these weed lines are at. Look at where the weed lines are at, look at where the open pockets in the weed beds are at, look at the little inside corners on these weed beds, mark them with the GPS or even mark them with the shoreline structure. Even in your canals, when you're going up and down the canals, if you normally ice fish in your canal, pay attention to all those little details. Look for anything on the bottom, look for logs, look for anything down there, an old trash can that somebody threw in, an old picnic table down along some of the shorelines. You guys know what I'm talking about. You know where those are at. So pay attention to all that stuff now while you can see going into wintertime, and then use that information later in the season. Once we get into ice fishing season, you can go right over top of that structure. Even when it's super shallow, it's going to pay huge dividends for you. So that's what I was trying to, when I was going to remember, and I usually forget to talk about it. So with that said, maybe we'll see you up in Imlay City. If not, we'll see you at the store this weekend. Hey, if you like this video content and you want to get updated as soon as the next video is out there, hit that subscribe button and the little bell icon and you'll get notified as soon as the next video is up.